History 1. I've had strange encounters with delivery guys before, but this one tops them all. It made me question my own sanity. About 2 weeks ago, my buddy Mike came over for some Netflix and chill. After a while, we got hungry and decided to order pizza. I picked up my phone and called the local Domino's. The phone rang once before a guy picked up. "Domino's Pizza, may I take your order, please?" He belched out. He sounded like one of those overly enthusiastic telemarketers. "Yeah, I'll have 2 large pizzas with extra onion rings on top," I replied. "Noted, sir, your order will be delivered shortly," he assured. Since it wasn't the first time I was ordering from them, I trusted his word. "Sure, thanks, bro," I said before ending the call. We hoped the pizza would arrive within 30 minutes, but after 4 long hours, it still hadn't arrived. Mike got tired of waiting and decided to leave, leaving me alone in the apartment to possibly die of starvation. A few minutes after Mike left, I heard 3 firm knocks on the door. Thinking he might have forgotten something, I briskly walked to open it. But as the door swung open, it wasn't Mike standing there. Instead, it was a disturbing-looking dude with raggedy hair and bloodshot eyes. His eyes were sunken, and the bags around them were massive. He even looked tattered and may have had a blood stain on his shirt. The only things that stood out to me were the Domino's branded shirt he had on and the box of pizzas in his hand. "What the hell, dude? I've been waiting for this for hours," I snapped at him. He didn't say a word. He just stood there with a blank expression, his head slightly tilted to the left. I would have assumed he was high, but I couldn't smell alcohol or weed on him. I expected an apology, but none came. "You know what, John?" I peered closer at the name tag pinned to his chest. "John Smith? I'll take this up with your manager." I grudgingly pulled the pizza boxes from his hand. If it wasn't for my rumbling stomach, my pride wouldn't have let me take the pizza. I gave him the stink eye before slamming the door in his face. It was already dark, but at least I finally had something to eat. I laid back on the couch and got ready to dig in, but as I flipped one of the boxes open, I got another shock. One of the pizza slices had a huge chunk bitten out of it. I was livid. I felt like breaking a baseball bat over that guy's head or running him over with a car, but I lacked the energy for any of those feats. I dropped the pizza back on the table and grabbed my phone instead. I called the Domino's restaurant again, but unlike before, I didn't get a speedy response. The call rang about 5 or 6 times before someone finally answered. "Hello, this is Domino's. How may I help you?" This time, the voice sounded more mature and calm. "Yeah, can you please transfer me to the manager? I'd like to speak to him about my order and the delivery service I received," I said. "I'm the manager. What's the problem?" the man asked. "My pizza was delivered 4 hours late and it looks like someone had eaten out of it," I replied. "Oh, that's terrible. Did you get the name of your delivery guy?" the manager asked. "Yes, his name was John Smith," I said. The line suddenly went silent. I could hear him breathing, but he wasn't saying anything. "Hello, are you still there?" I asked. Yeah, I'm here." His voice abruptly sounded jittery and nervous. "When did you receive this delivery?" the manager asked. "At about 8:27 p.m. this evening," I responded. The line went silent again. I was tempted to ask if there was a problem, but I decided to wait for his response. I grabbed a piece of pizza to calm my raging stomach while I waited. Eventually, he responded with a stern tone. "I'm afraid that's impossible, son. John Smith is dead." Instantly, a cold chill ran down my spine. Maybe he was playing a prank or trying to pull my leg, I wondered. "That's ridiculous. I just saw him like 3 minutes ago," I stammered. "I don't know what to tell you, son, but it's all over the news. You can see for yourself. He died in a freak car accident earlier this afternoon. He had never missed an order until today. It's just tragic, really," the manager explained. While the manager was still speaking, I slowly lowered my phone onto the couch and tuned to the news channel. I was completely horror-stricken by the first frame. Pictures of the same guy who had stood in front of my door minutes ago were all over the news. He and 3 others were involved in a crash. He had been declared deceased. I felt like I was losing my mind. I jolted off the couch and dashed to the lobby, but there was no trace of him. I even ran out into the cold, dark street, but he was gone. I walked back to my apartment, bolted the doors, and just sat on my couch. I tried to make sense of the entire evening, but nothing made sense. History 2. Here's the revised version of your story with the requested changes. If you ever notice your boss acting strange, don't ignore it. Don't pretend that you're okay with it and it'll go away. I'm saying this because I thought I could ignore my boss, and what happened was bad enough that I'm in therapy for it. It happened a week ago. I'm a pizza delivery driver and every night is the same. I clock in and make a few deliveries throughout the night. Then, towards the end of my shift, my boss makes strange comments to me. Usually I just ignore him, but this one night he was especially pushy. "Hey, you look beautiful tonight. Why don't you come to my house after your shift and we can get a few drinks?" "Thanks, but I'm busy." "I'm just joking with you, Marcy. Lighten up." I laughed, but I could see his stare following me as I pulled out my phone to clock out. Right before I hit the button, however, the phone rang. The manager walked over to it, picked it up, and answered. "Hey, we got a late order, Marcy. Why don't you take it?" I sighed and reluctantly agreed. The address was a little ways away in a well-to-do neighborhood, but I had no idea what kind of horror awaited me there. I knocked on the door and a woman answered. "The pizza is already here. I'm so sorry. Come in while I get my wallet." "Yeah, okay." I stepped inside and immediately noticed something strange. There were photos of me up on the walls. Every wall was covered with pictures. I recoiled, realizing that these photos were taken from the CCTV footage from the surveillance cameras my manager had installed a while back. "Oh, what the—" Before I could finish my sentence, however, I heard footsteps and whirled around toward the door. There stood my manager. You can't possibly understand the horrifying picture he painted as he stood there, my car's headlights casting a shadow on his disfigured body. His hands hung at his sides, much larger than the rest of his lanky arms. His round eyes stared at me wildly, and a grin spread over his face. I could barely stop screaming, but I still felt hopeful. Maybe he had come to rescue me. "What are you doing here? You always reject me, and now I can have you. You think that you could just ignore me and get away with it?" I glanced past him and saw that his wife was standing just behind him, her eyes fixed on the ceiling as she muttered over and over, "He'll have you. He'll always have you." She showed no emotion, as if she were not aware of what was going on. I screamed and ran into the next room, but he came after me, screaming and shouting. I could hear his heavy footsteps thudding behind me, his huge hands reaching for me. I managed to dodge into another room, but as I ran I saw his wife advance from another doorway. "What is wrong with you? Don't you care that your husband is trying to hurt me?" She kept staring at the ceiling, simply grinned wider, and raised a rolling pin in the air. I realized then that they were both psychos, and I had to escape. I made a run for the window and managed to jump out just as they reached me, closing the window behind me. My car was only a few feet away, and I made it into it with barely enough time to lock the doors behind me. The manager and his wife came running out. The manager held nothing in his hands, but the rage on his face was evident. He gnashed his small teeth as he saw where I was, turning toward his wife and telling her something I couldn't hear. But the next moment, he turned and began to run toward me, his wife following just behind him. I put the car in reverse and peeled out of the driveway, not looking back until I was a few blocks away. I reported them to the police that night, and they were arrested. As it turns out, he was responsible for some of the missing girls in town over the past few months. Never ignore your boss. Never ignore them. What makes this whole ordeal worse, however, is that some of the pictures on his walls weren't from the CCTV footage. Some of them were of me when I was sleeping, when I was driving, or even when I was alone in my own home. I can only conclude that my boss had been stalking me and planning this attack for months. It still sends a chill down my spine when I think about it. But the worst thing is the realization of how close I could have come to the same fate as those other unfortunate girls. Don't ignore your boss if they act strange. Don't assume that it'll blow over and that everything will be okay. Reach out to someone you trust and make sure that they know what's going on. Your safety is more important than anything else. I can safely say that I'm never going to deliver pizza again. History 3. Hey folks, my name is Jake, and let me tell you, I am a huge pizza enthusiast. I love trying every flavor you can think of, whether it's exotic or not. If there's pizza involved, count me in. Whenever a new pizza joint opens up, I'm the first in line to try it out. You might wonder why I don't just get it delivered. Well, after you hear my story, you might understand my hesitation. It all started one ordinary night. It was around 3 a.m. when the doorbell woke me up. Thinking it was just some kid playing a prank, I went back to bed. The next morning I checked the security camera to see if I could identify the prankster. To my surprise, it wasn't VDJ TM kid. It was a pizza delivery guy, but there was something off about him. He had no lips, his teeth were crooked and rotten, and his mouth was unnervingly large. But the most unsettling thing was his expression. He seemed to know exactly where the camera was, and when he looked into it, it felt like he was staring straight at me. He said pizza delivery in a chilling tone, then left the pizza on my doorstep. When I finally had the nerve to check it, I almost threw up. The pizza was rotten, crawling with maggots and bugs. I threw it away and saved the video just in case. From that night on, the nightmare began to repeat itself. Every morning at dawn, he would ring my doorbell, say pizza delivery, and leave. I called the police multiple times. They even arrested him once, but he was released soon after. Why would they keep a guy in jail for delivering a pizza? I was too scared to confront him directly. I had no idea what he was capable of. I tried to ignore it, hoping it would stop. One Saturday night, my wife had taken our kids to visit their grandparents, and I was home alone. Or so I thought. I was about to leave the bathroom when I noticed something odd in the bathtub, a slice of rotten pizza, and it was still warm. Someone had left it there recently. Suddenly, I felt eyes on me from the dining room. I rushed to shut the bathroom door just in time. The intruder banged violently on the other side, desperate to get in. I had no idea what he wanted or what he might do to me, but I wasn't eager to find out. Hours passed. I knew I had to escape, but I also knew he was right outside. Then I heard footsteps moving towards the dining room door, the only exit. I devised a plan. I would dash to the kitchen, grab my phone, and hide back in the bathroom to call the police. I flung open the door and sprinted, but I was tackled almost immediately. 3 men, all dressed as pizza delivery guys, but wearing grotesque animal masks, pinned me down. The man from my nightmares entered without a mask, looking more terrifying than ever. "Please, Don Vijay, T hurt me. Take whatever you want," I pleaded. The leader gestured, and the masked men began tearing my house apart, searching for something. The unmasked man approached me with a pizza box. Without warning, he forced the rotten pizza into my mouth. I could taste the worms and bugs. I struggled, trying to vomit, but he shoved his foot in my mouth to stop me. "I thought you liked pizza," he sneered. Summoning all my strength, I yanked his foot, causing him to fall. I punched the man holding me and bolted, but the others quickly caught up, dragging me outside. The leader approached with a screwdriver, sitting on my chest and tracing a line down my sternum. "Please, I have a family," I begged. "They want him to know what to do without me." He raised the screwdriver, but before he could strike, police swarmed, guns drawn. They had been alerted by a vigilant neighbor who saw the men break in. Under interrogation, the intruders confessed they were TMT delivery guys, but hired killers. The bizarre act with the pizza was to mislead the police into thinking a lunatic or cult had killed me. The mastermind behind it all? My wife. She never visited her parents. She went to her lover, planning to inherit everything after my death. Now, Wev DJ Marie in the midst of a trial, and it looks like justice will prevail. I live peacefully with my kids, and we still love pizza. But ever since that ordeal, I always pick it up myself, just in case.